Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live through the end of the world? For the people of 14th century Europe, that wasn't a hypothetical question, it was their terrifying reality. Between 1347 and 1351, a shadow fell across the continent, an unstoppable force that would rewrite the course of human history. This was the Black Death, the most devastating pandemic ever recorded. Imagine living in a bustling medieval city. The streets are crowded, the sanitation is, well, let's just say it's not great. Then the whispers start. Sailors arriving from the east, from ports in the Black Sea, are falling ill with a strange and horrifying sickness. They develop dark, swollen lumps in their armpits and groin, followed by fever, chills, and vomiting. Within days, most are dead. This mysterious illness, carried by fleas on black rats aboard trading ships, had arrived in Europe. This was the bubonic plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. At first, it was a distant horror, a story from a faraway land. But trade routes were the highways of the medieval world, and the plague was an expert hitchhiker. From the port of Messina in Sicily in 1347, it spread with breathtaking speed. It moved north through Italy into France, Spain, and then across the Channel to England. By 1349, it had reached Germany and Scandinavia. No corner of the continent was safe. The sheer scale of the devastation is almost impossible for us to comprehend today. We're talking about a death toll that wiped out an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of Europe's entire population. In just 4 years, somewhere between 75 and 200 million people perished. Let that sink in. Entire villages were wiped off the map. Cities like Florence lost over half their citizens. Priests died before they could give last rites, and grave diggers died before they could bury the dead. The social fabric of society was ripped to shreds. People were desperate for an explanation. Why was this happening? With no knowledge of germ theory, their explanations ranged from the scientific to the superstitious. Some university scholars believed it was due to a disastrous alignment of planets, creating a great pestilence in the air. Many more saw it as divine punishment, God's wrath unleashed upon a sinful world. This led to the rise of the flagellants, groups of people who would march from town to town, whipping themselves in public displays of penance, hoping to appease an angry God. Tragically, their constant travel likely helped spread the disease even further. In their fear and confusion, people also looked for scapegoats. And as has happened so many times throughout history, the blame fell upon minority groups. Jewish communities across Europe were falsely accused of poisoning wells and deliberately spreading the plague. This led to horrific massacres, with entire communities being burned alive, despite the fact that the plague was affecting everyone, regardless of their faith. Life during the plague was a living nightmare. Giovanni Boccaccio, who lived through it in Florence, wrote a powerful account in his book, The Decameron. He described how families abandoned each other. Parents refused to care for their sick children. Husbands left their wives. The fear of contagion broke the most fundamental human bonds. He wrote of bodies being piled up in the streets, with mass graves being dug just to handle the sheer volume of the dead. It was a world turned upside down, where the normal rites and rituals of life and death were completely abandoned. Doctors at the time were powerless. Their treatments, based on ancient theories of balancing the body's humors, were completely ineffective. They would try bloodletting or lancing the buboes, the swollen lymph nodes, but this often just made things worse. They wore bizarre, bird-like masks with long beaks filled with aromatic herbs, believing this would protect them from the bad air, or miasma, that they thought caused the disease. While the mask itself offered little real protection, it's become one of the most enduring and eerie symbols of the Black Death. But here's the fascinating part. Out of this unparalleled catastrophe, a new world began to emerge. The Black Death didn't just kill people, it killed the old way of life. It triggered a series of profound social, economic, and cultural changes that arguably propelled Europe out of the Middle Ages and toward the Renaissance. Think about it from an economic perspective. With up to half the population gone, there was a massive labor shortage. For the first time in centuries, the peasants and workers who survived found themselves in a position of power. They could demand higher wages and better working conditions. Landowners who had relied on cheap labor were forced to adapt. This shift in power dynamics severely weakened the old feudal system, which had structured society for hundreds of years. The rigid hierarchy of lords and serfs began to crumble. This newfound social mobility also had a huge psychological impact. People who had survived the apocalypse felt a new sense of agency. They had stared death in the face and lived. This led to a questioning of old authorities, including the church. Why couldn't the church protect them? Why did so many priests die? This skepticism helped plant the seeds for the Protestant Reformation, which would sweep across Europe a century and a half later. Culturally, the obsession with death was everywhere. Art from this period is filled with grim imagery of skeletons and the Danse Macabre, or Dance of Death, which depicted people from all walks of life, kings, popes, peasants being led away by death. It was a stark reminder that death is the great equalizer. But alongside this morbidity, there was also a renewed appreciation for life itself. For those who survived, there was a sense of carpe diem, or seize the day. This impulse to enjoy life, to celebrate human potential and beauty, was a key driver of the Renaissance. The Black Death also spurred medical innovation. The failure of old methods forced a re-evaluation of medicine. Cities began to implement the first public health measures, like quarantines. When ships arrived in port, they were forced to wait, initially for 30 days Trentino and later 40 days Quarantino, where we get our word quarantine, to ensure they weren't carrying the plague. It was a rudimentary but crucial first step toward modern epidemiology and public health. So, while the Black Death was an unimaginable tragedy, a period of immense suffering and loss, it was also a powerful catalyst for change. It was a brutal, population-wide reset button. It cleared away the rigid, decaying structures of the medieval world and, in doing so, created the space for something new to grow. It accelerated trends that were already in motion and forced a continent to rebuild itself on a new foundation. The story of the Black Death is a chilling reminder of our vulnerability to disease, a lesson that has echoed through history, right up to our own recent experiences with global pandemics. But it's also a powerful testament to human resilience. It shows us that even in the face of the darkest imaginable circumstances, societies can adapt, innovate, and ultimately be reborn from the ashes. It shaped our world in ways we're still feeling today, from our economic systems to our approach to public health. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the pivotal moments that have shaped our world. Let me know in the comments what part of this story shocked you the most. See you in the next video.